Alright, this is either going to be before or after my April Nerd Block vid. So if you're seeing this, it's probably before or after, but this is April 15th. Just to clarify, this is done, before or after, depending on when I post it. But I wanted to talk to you guys about where my mindset is right now. I have not been able to write for a couple of weeks. This is predominantly due to like weather changes and stuff. I've kind of gone back to a very restless pattern where I'm not that I'm sleeping badly cuz I'm sleeping quite comfortably, but it's more there's a lot of unavoidable drama on my end. And I've noticed this. It's always right around March or April or somewhere in the beginning in the year that everybody gets very tense, very aggressive as we go into spring and into summer. It's like a dip low, dip high, whichever. Um, I think creatively that's part of the reason that I haven't written, and it's also the fact that not a lot of gigs have come my way or have been available. I'm actually probably, as soon as I'm done with this and I eat and tinker around with stuff, I'm going to try to actually work on some stuff. I'm going to try to write. Sorry, you got a little cruddy thing there. So I'm going to try to work on at least like writing something, at least like getting something down because I don't like that I've spent so many weeks away from writing. Like I took like a mini break, just to mainly get caught up with Xbox, get caught up with games and stuff, and just like try to relax myself. But I'm getting kind of antsy and frustrated, and I know that that's because the creative part of me is like, dude, you need to write something. You've had your fun, you're enjoying the latest game that you got in the PlayStation or Microsoft deals. You're living it up, but don't forget like what you're doing. Don't forget why you're here, quote unquote. Um, and I also need to start buckling down and getting myself ready because the month of May is going to be when DC is going to be opening their doors to the writer workshop. So I'm gonna work on that. So there's a lot of things, guys, that are going on. Oni Press, Dark Horse, etc., so forth. These, boy, that is bothering me. There's it's a lot of doors, guys, that are gonna eventually come open next month or so. There's a lot of doors that maybe I want to kick open, and maybe there's a lot of people that I need to work with. So I think it's also I took these couple of breaks to kind of reassess to myself. Okay, I'm aspiring to do comics. I see people around me, following that goal, following that dream. But am I really following that dream myself? Am I? Sorry, let me pause for a moment here. Sorry, have just happened to look down and notice I kind of had a little bit of like a weirdish kind of nail that needed to be trimmed while I had my feet crossed here. But anyway, I'm trying to keep this serious, but you guys know me. I'm scatterbrained. My mind goes everywhere. It's hard sometimes to keep me on track. But I am getting to a point, I think, where I need to consider either I need to do this or I need to not do it. Because I'm in that weird zone where it's like I'm starting out, but I don't think it's quite the seriousness of wanting to try to write comics has really hit me until like now, I think. Because I look at this going into, okay, this is my second year. It's like, oh, that's cool, going into my second year to where now I think after a month or two, everything that happened last year with, Darkest Night #1 and, trying all these, different things in March and stuff. I think now by April, it's finally caught up to me that, okay, nothing's going on. And I think that bothers me more than anything. It's like, okay, nothing's going on. Like, there's no gigs available, nobody's looking for anybody, and, that kind of starts to make me wonder, like, okay, I'm not finding what I need, so what should I do? Sorry, I had to look for something. I had to look for like a notepad or something to write something down later. But, I mean, my mind's obviously, as you can tell, like jumbled up. It's all over the place. And I think a lot of that, honestly, guys, is just because I'm trying to mentally stay proactive, but it's very difficult because, there's so much going on and I'm thinking about multiple things at once. I'm thinking about, is this a career field that I may ever, 10, 12 years down the road, ever make it? And the answer is that hardly anybody ever makes it in comics. I know that. It's a realistic fact. I'm not going to deny it, but I think there's a part of me that really truly wants to succeed, but I'm just frustrated because I don't know how. That's the part that bothers me. It's the how. I have the tools, but it's the know-how. But I think a lot of it, honestly, is maybe I need to talk to people. Maybe I need to get wisdom from those that have done this longer than me, that are in the public eye. Not even just in the public eye, but I think just in general. Like trying to get a consensus of, well, what should I do? And I know what the answer is. It's basically, right in front of me. It's like, work on your own stuff. But it's like, what story do I tell? That's what I've been trying to figure out for weeks. For weeks, honestly, is what kind of story do I want to tell? Who's the right collaborator? Very important questions for those that work in any creative field. Who do you want to work with? It's like, you want to work with somebody famous, you gotta buckle up. But if you want to find somebody who is aspiring like you are, do you take your chance on that person? Luckily for me, I do know someone who is aspiring, has actually released a couple of his own like books and stuff. So and he actually said, that he was gonna let me know about a job or something, but I think what I'll do is I will try to see what I can work out. Try to see if I can work something out like tonight. Because I already set up a thing specifically for this person, this collaborator. So once I figure out the kind of the story that I want to tell, I'll go over it with them and think, and like say, hey, is this what would you be interested in working on this? Guys, I can tell you, it is frustrating, it is worrisome, it is bothersome a lot of trying to juggle, real life with, creative endeavors, with trying to have a norm. Like, that's something that I see with, say, like, even popular YouTubers like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, or even, people that just do, like, casual, fun things. Like, a lot of different comic creators, comic artists, etc., or so forth. But you know what? I think like anything else in life, you got to learn to walk the tightrope. And for me, I have fun. That's the important part of why I made this creative endeavor towards the end of 2014, is because I really wanted I really wanted to have a creative endeavor. I wanted to have something that was meaningful, or at least something that even if it was just something that filled my time, something that I could do casually, it was something that I would at least have purpose and meaning in. Because for those of you that are new to the channel, have never watched previous vlogs or have not followed me throughout the years, those of you that are just finding out who I am, or have happened to pass by my channel and stuff, sorry. Trying not to get too misty-eyed, but I'm a very emotional person by nature sometimes. I walked around for many years, guys, with no purpose. None. I was the kid that you know, especially those of you that are younger or a little bit or a little bit younger or know what I'm talking about, etc. so forth, from any walk of life. If you have ever seen that kid that sits at the lunch table by himself, is sitting there trying not to cry, or is sitting there drawing and people like rip up his drawings, or people tell him that he's crap, that's not cool to me. To me, that's not cool. But I think the thing I think the thing that makes me passionate about comics, I look at it from a passionate fan point of view, but from a business perspective, there's a lot of logistics I have to look at, and I'm just beginning to fathom stuff. I look at Denny O'Neil's writing comic book. My mother actually recently, luckily during, because Random House for their employees occasionally have a bargain bin day. Um, which is kind of cool for some book companies. But my mother managed to find Greg Pak and Fred Van Lean's like how to collaborate with comics books or creating comics like the pros, which was a book I had actually been had sought after. But it was also Stan Lee's how to create comics, and I have art autonomy books. I cannot draw a straight line, but I appreciate art in its most appreciative form. I appreciate pop culture, history of comics. It's like I've always loved comics beyond just it's superheroes and mysteries and stuff. No, I appreciated comics for its pop culture impact, and why it confused me that people would never take it seriously until all these movies started coming out recently. And I will admit I was what they call a gate guarder. I didn't want new people coming in that would muck up, the culture, the community. But what I found both through my own aging and maturity and journey is I don't know everything. Most of these people, they don't know. They want to learn, but they don't know. For example, I had a coworker yesterday, is excited to see, Civil War, loves Chris Evans' Captain America, loves the character of Captain America. I tell her little historical facts about Cap. And she's like, I don't like that character Black Panther. It's like, could he actually beat Captain America? And it's so funny because with this movie coming out, people, at my workplace, but also people that know me outside of work, constantly ask me questions. I had to literally go, without getting too nerdy, because I tend to get very nerdy, I had to try to casually explain, why Geoff Johns created all these different other Lantern Corps, aside from the Sinestro Corps and the Green Lantern Corps. And what each of these different Lantern Corps represented. So to those that are the less, geekfully inclined, I look at it as, okay, I'm a tutor. I can, even if they don't want to learn the full history of a character, it's like, give them cool facts. Like, okay, she didn't want to hear the boring history of Wakanda. Well, Wakanda's history is not boring, but I'm just saying to somebody who's casual that will never read comics, give an overview. Like, okay, what is Wakanda? What is Black Panther? How does Black Panther rule Wakanda? What is his backstory? How does he stack up against, Captain America in this cinematic universe, and why it's so important that this character, shows up, and why this character can take Captain America. It's like there's There's a lot of different things that I enjoy now with this. This idea that now people that want to learn in the geek culture about these characters that they see in these movies, there's people like myself that have now become open-minded enough that it's like, okay, if you really love this character, then here's the history. Here's some stories that you can read with this character, and if not, follow the current series and, we can fill in the gaps for you. Because see, that's something that I don't like. It is when people say, well, you only follow the movies, you're not a real fan. I hate those people. I hate them as much as I hate these 40, 50, 60-year-old long boxers. These people that bring boxes upon boxes of comics. Because my whole thing is Comic-Cons are not there for the older fans. They're there for the younger fans. And I'm sure that's a controversial statement, but I'm going to be bluntly honest. It's not there for those of us that have been collecting comics for anywhere from 20 to 40 years. It's for the little toddlers, or it's for, the gung-ho teenagers, the prepubescent, or, even pro-puberty, like, kids, the teenagers, you know, 16, 17-year-olds, to even like people in their early 20s, to kids that are about like knee high. One of the greatest cool joys was watching a guy cosplaying as Spider-Man, emulating the movements. He must have been somebody who was a parkour runner, because he looked like he had a parkour runner, type figure just from, how snug his costume was. Don't ask why I pay this much attention to people's, costumes at conventions. It just, but that's not the point. It's not the point of, well, oh, I'm gauging, how fit somebody is underneath, their Spider-Man cosplay outfit, their Captain America, like, styrofoam muscle suit. No, it's the main point of why I'm telling this is it's so cool to see a little kid who has dressed up as like movie Ant-Man getting his picture alongside that Spidey, and it was as enjoyable for the guy cosplaying as Spidey as it was for the little kid. The little kid's like, oh my god, it's like that's the, or it's even seeing a guy dressed up as Christian Bale's Batman squaring off, quote unquote, in a mock pose against like a guy dressed, as early, Stephen Amell Green Arrow with like the green boxing glove, tipped arrow, and about ready to like, shoot Batman, and Batman just like pose like he's about ready to, like, those are the moments that I'm very much enjoy, and those are the moments that for people that don't read comics or are casual comic fans, or people that only watch the movies or are very new to the geek culture in general, those are the moments that I love, because you see the joy in people's faces no matter what age. You see the joy, you see the love for the community, you see the love in the community. But then you have situations that really anger me, like the long boxer behind me who just kept whining and complaining and acting so self-entitled when Scott Snyder, when Scott Snyder, who recently just ended his run on Batman, or at least the main series with Greg Capullo, that they, it was a great moment to me, to be able to meet Scott. And I mean, I got one or two books for myself signed, and I got a book signed as an early, birthday gift, birthday/Christmas gift for, a coworker of mine, because, he brings his sons to these, conventions because they love it. And so I got that signed for him, and it was cool. The look on his face was pure joy, but the long boxer behind me did not like that I shunned him and everybody else. And I know that makes me, as somebody who is an aspiring, that's not good for an aspiring creator like me, and B, it's bad manners to call people out like that, because it makes you know better than them. But I'm sorry, I'm gonna call people like that out, because that's not cool. That's very counterintuitive to the culture. Yes, there are ethics. Yes, some creators do tend to be late, but you know what? At least Scott Snyder owned up to it. And I told Scott, I said, you know what, dude? I said, don't worry. I said, I'll apologize for the crybabies. I said, dude, I said, I hope that you're having fun, here in Baltimore, etc. So forth. Like, I'm a very open-minded person. If you meet me on the street, I'm pretty open-minded. I'm pretty cool. Yeah, I have a little bit of a vulgar sense of humor, but I'm very cool. If I start producing more work and you bring your work to me, and you bring my work to me for me to sign, like if you bought Darkest Night #1, for example, or Darkest Night #2, when JW finishes it, and when JW Sims of Hooligan Alley Comics, finishes it. If you bring those two issues to me to sign, and you say, I don't think that this really, was all that great a debut for you in comics, etc., so forth, I'll take that criticism. Because you know what? It's not my best work. And it never will be my best work. But you know what? I'm okay with it. Because I'm learning and growing not just as a writer and an aspiring creative in the world of comics and or writing in general, but I'm growing as a person. And I think that, above anything else, guys, is what's important. Too often people get too prideful, like, how dare you? No. It's one thing if somebody's belligerently putting you down versus somebody that's giving you constructive criticism. There's a big difference. And I think that that's the problem with the world that we live in. The world that we live in, everybody's opinion becomes fact. And it's not always that way. I hate to pop people's bubble with that, but your opinion does not matter. It really doesn't. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here in this video and justifiably devalue you as a person. But I will say that you come at me with negativity, I'm more than likely just going to ignore it now. I'm not going to fire back at you. But if you say something stupid that I can poke holes in, I'm going to do so. But usually I'm just going to ignore it. Because I don't have time for drama, and I don't have time for people's stupidity. Especially the people that think they're in the know. You don't know me, so don't try to act like you know me. That's always something funny to me. But anyway, guys, I don't want to drone on. I don't want to make this a complete 30-minute video, but I felt like I guess I just needed an outpour, like something. I don't even know if this will be posted, to be honest with you. After getting all that off my chest, it's like maybe I just needed to look into a camera and vent. Maybe I need to get my feelings out about where my head's been at for the last couple of weeks. Maybe I've just been bottling up what I've been feeling. But if I do post this, and you've made it this far in the video and you're not talking about how boring my voice is or etc. so forth, or how I stumble, or how I'm too easily distracted, or you can't take me seriously, I'll ignore you guys. But those of you that are like, Steve, it's like, I understand your point. I understand what you're saying. I think this video should not have taken this long for you to get your point across. Okay, I can agree with that criticism. But sometimes, as is always the case in life, you want to allow yourself as much time as you can for a platform. For an outlook. And I think that's the thing for me, is I think I'm using this video as a platform to say that I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be mentally or emotionally well. But where I came from, where I was, down in the dumps, where I was depressed, where I was ashamed of telling people that I was autistic because people thought that I'd be exercised, because I was different, etc. so forth. It's now come full circle where at 28, almost 29, almost 30, God, imagine how that makes me feel. I'm almost turning 30. I never thought that day would come. To almost be fast approaching 30. But you know what, guys? I take it on the chin, and I take it with humility, because you know what? In retrospect, I did not really have a bad life. I just had a lot of bad experiences. Experiences that make my life seem like it was so much tougher than it really was. But I'm also okay with that because you know what? Sometimes you have to go through bad and oftentimes traumatic experiences, however big or small, guys, to reach that next plateau in your life, that next defining moment where you lie awake at night and you ask yourself, what's next? You know, and then you look back at the fruits of your kingdom, quote unquote, and you ask yourself, okay, it's like I went through everything. I went through the worst of the worst in my life. What exactly can make me hit rock bottom? And maybe I'll hit a step below rock bottom, but I feel, guys, that I have, you know, hit the bottom of the barrel, that I have reached my glass ceiling and busted through it, as far as my life and as far as my ambitions. I may not be the most motivated person. I may not be, the most proactive person, but I am not any less intelligent, not any less emotional, not any less, hilarious and or, social than anybody else. We live in very dark times, but I also believe from a certain social perspective that we live in good times. And I'm sure most of you are, perplexed by what I mean by that. Yeah, yeah, the world is not getting better. The world's messed up. The world's a very dark place. You don't want to bring children into it. But they say it's usually the little things that count for something. And the little things that we have in this world right now, the little things that we can look forward to, those are the things that we should hold dear. Family, friends, pets, entertainment. The proper entertainment, not the Kardashians, but stuff like these comic book movies. Stuff that's escapism. Stuff that gets us away from the daily grind. We should hold on to those and cherish them. Because once they're gone, guys, they're gone. There's no coming back. So I guess in closing, what I'm saying, guys, is don't be afraid to dream and don't be afraid to try what you think is impossible. When people said that I would never reach the point that I am now, I was told when I was a kid that I would be nothing more than another mouth to feed, a ward of the state of Oklahoma. I graduated high school. When people said, why bother writing comics? You're probably not going to make it. I now have an issue that is written by me and an issue that will be co-written from what was left from the first script of my outline. It's going to be out there. I have another story that if an anthology is ever brought back up, it will be used. I have networked and connected with people on the independent part of comics that are willing to give me a shot. I have submitted to 2 or 3 major companies, workshop slash collaborational stuff, their anthologies, their new talent searches. And I'm about ready to try DC's with only 1 or 2 writing credits. I will not make that workshop, but it's not going to stop me from trying. See, that's the one thing that most people in society have forgotten is challenging the fear of the unknown. And it's kind of ironic because Jack Kirby created the Challenges of the Unknown for DC. I actually have to kind of laugh at that. I managed to make a pun. But all I'm saying, guys, is don't mark yourself out. Even if you know you're not going to succeed, do it anyway. If you want to write comics, go and write comics. Even if your comic sucks, even if it is the worst comic on earth, write it. Even if it never gets published, even if you never get it worked on, do it anyway, because when you do it and you sit back, guys, and you look at that, and now we're passing 30 minutes, and you do, we're now past the 30-minute mark, but I'm on a roll here, so anyway, when you achieve what people say that you could not do, that makes it all the more better, and it gives you a sense of empowerment. I may be lazy, I may be unmotivated, I may probably never actually make it into comics. I'm going to be real with y'all, I may never make it. But I'm never going to stop trying. I'm never going to put my best foot forward and not try. Because, see, I was always told that the odds were never in my favor. But those of you who are wrestling fans, I know he's not everybody's favorite wrestler. Everybody hates him. But you know what? Pro wrestling. But you know what? Roman Reigns had a great quote. And it is very true. I can and I will. If there's nothing else in this world, tell yourself that phrase, that you can do it, and that hell, you will do it. And you know what? Even if you don't succeed, even if you don't stick with it, you can go to your grave knowing that you at least tried, rather than saying, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't do this. You know what? Yoda said it best in Star Wars. Do or don't. There is no try. You can do it, or you can choose not to do it. But don't say, well, maybe I can do it. No. Either you don't do it, or you do it. In my case, I'm going to do it. And when there comes a point where I say I'm not going to do it, probably going to be the day that I'm too old to try, or it's going to be the day that I die, one or the other. You guys can decide that for yourselves. But with that, guys, I am going to leave this video off. More than likely you guys probably aren't going to watch half of this. But if you watched all the way to the end here, congrats. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much and put you to sleep. But I just felt, guys, that I needed to do this vlog for myself. I felt I had to get a lot off my chest, but I felt I also had to at least end this on a positive note. At least give words of encouragement. Because I know that there's a lot of people that are very unsure of themselves in this world, and they're getting even more unsure. Believe in yourselves, guys. Nothing is impossible. Don't believe me? Watch the movie Pearl Harbor. Better yet, go on YouTube and find, and type in Pearl Harbor FDR Don't Tell Me It's Impossible scene. One of my favorite scenes out of that movie is FDR, who had polio, with no assistance, stood up, forced himself up out of his wheelchair with his leg braces, and straining to stay on his feet with his knees buckling, told the Secretary of Defense after the base in Honolulu during Pearl Harbor got attacked. Pearl Harbor, go figure, named after the movie. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. But I'm just saying, that scene is great to me, and I always love it when that movie's on. Just because FDR did what many people said that he could not do, which was stand up. And he stood up and he told the Secretary of Defense, don't tell me what's impossible. Be like FDR in that movie, guys. Somebody says you can't do something, tell them that they don't have the right to tell you that you can't try. And I'm gonna actually end the video this time for real. And oh, good God, we're at like almost 35 minutes. Somehow I had a feeling I was gonna go over, in this video. But anyway, guys, I will see you all later. Um, and just, do what you need to do. You know, if you have something that you want to try, something that you're passionate about, just do it. Just don't even think about it. Just do it. You'll thank yourself. You'll thank yourself later.